Why is Singapore different? It's because the people make it so, and the people, meaning our own people and the talent we have within Singapore, and the talent we can attract to Singapore and make members of our extended family who can help us to prosper and help us to make a living.
What do you consider members of the extended family?
People who come to Singapore and work, people who come to Singapore and strike roots, people who come and eventually become citizens.
Is Singapore's future as bright or brighter today than it was 5 years ago?
I would say so. I would say so. I mean, over the last 5 years, we've weathered SARS, well, a little bit longer than 5 years.
Right.
We've weathered the global financial crisis. We've come through, bounced back. We've just had our first quarter growth. Is
9% approaching?
13% over last year.
Right, right. And so for the 2010, what do you expect?
For 2010, we're expecting 7 to 9%.
7 to 9,
yeah. So we are on a good platform, not to cruise ahead, but to build for the future. And this is a platform on which we can say, now we've got the growth, let's get the transformation moving.
How did this happen?
I think firstly, we were lucky. The world picked up better than we expected. I think the American team, Paulson and Bernanke and Geithner, did a good job, and we are beneficiaries. I think we were lucky we did the right thing in the downturn last year.
Which was?
We decided to focus on saving jobs and keeping companies viable. So the government, we had resources, so the government helped to bear the social security expenses for workers. Companies worked with unions to keep workers employed, and therefore they were, firstly, we kept social cohesion, and secondly, when the moment came to pick up, they were ready to pick up and to increase production and go again. And so this year we are booming again.
So what did you do?
What did we do? We invested in education. We invested in public housing so that people would have a home to own and to defend. We built up our armed forces so we could be secure in an uncertain world. We built up our institutions so that you have a government which people can trust and is competent and can protect our interests in the international community. And the people supported the government and worked with the government. And that reservoir of trust is one of our most valuable and sustainable competitive advantages.
The reservoir of trust.
Yes. We're happy to be a metaphor, but we remind ourselves that we have no safety nets and we can always fail if we get it wrong.
And what would get it wrong be?
If you don't have the right government, if you have the wrong policies, if you cause a loss of confidence. Supposing we were in the situation of Iceland or of Greece.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that.
Where would we be?
Iceland
is a friend of the EU, Greece is in the EU, so the Germans come riding to the rescue some way. But in Singapore, how will you ever come back?
You also have a sovereign wealth fund.
Yes.
Temasek, it's worth 100.
Temasek is not really a sovereign wealth fund. They have companies.
What is it? I don't understand the model. What is it then?
You're asking about Temasek?
Yeah.
Temasek owns a stable of companies.
Well, sovereign wealth funds own a stable of companies.
Sovereign wealth funds own a portfolio of financial assets.
But sometimes they buy entire companies. But
sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Temasek operates completely on commercial basis. We appoint their board.
Right.
But their board makes all the decisions, and the boards do not decide for the boards of the subsidiary and associate companies, because each of their companies, many of which are listed, have their own boards, and each one is accountable to all of their shareholders.
So it's more like a kind of giant sovereign private equity firm, except that it's owned by the government.
Except that Temasek is owned by the government, yes.
But you're the prime minister, and it's owned by the government, and you have a responsibility to the people of Singapore to make sure that they do well.
My responsibility is to make sure that I appoint that we have the right people managing the portfolio, that they make the right long-term decisions, taking into account the risks, It will maximize our returns over the long term, not every year, but on the whole portfolio basis. And my job is to provide them the political environment in which they can do their job without being distracted by the political flag.
How do you measure your commitment to democracy?
I think we measure it by the legitimacy of the government and by the results, how Singapore works and whether Singaporeans are able to have a better life.
What's an incentive to have a baby? If you have babies, you give them tax advantages?
No, there's a cash bonus.
Oh.
First,
so if you're a Singapore citizen...
Second, third, yes,
wait,
there's a cash bonus.
Explain it to us.
I can't remember the numbers now, but the first, second, and third, and fourth child, you have $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000, and if you co-pay into a savings account, the government will match that for the child to up to a certain amount, so that it helps to, because the more well-off people are, the more they feel the opportunity cost of having a child is exorbitant.
Right. Your wife is important in Singapore as a business person, correct?
I'm not sure you'd call her a business person. I think she's an employee.
You seem to be sensitive. You were to the issue of what's called nepotism.
We are very sensitive.
Tell me about the sensitivity.
The whole of our system is founded on a basic concept of meritocracy. You are where you are because you are the best man for the job and not because of your connections or your parents or your relatives. And if anybody doubts that I, as Prime Minister, am here not because I'm the best man for the job, but because my father fixed it, or my wife runs Temasek because I put her there, and not because she's the best woman for the job, then my entire credibility and moral authority is destroyed. I am not fit to be where I am. And it's a fundamental issue of fitness to govern. So if there's any doubt that this is so, and people believe that I'm there because, my father fixed it, or the whole system really is just a make-believe, then the system will come down. It's not tenable.
So if some journalist writes about nepotism and you think it's not true,
well, then we sue him.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
As we did recently.
And won.
Well, we
sued the International Herald Tribune.
We raised the matter with the Herald Tribune, and they paid damages and apologized. They didn't go to court. They could have gone to court.
Well, I would consider that winning if they paid damages and apologized.
All right.
But you thought that what was written in the International Herald Tribune would somehow attack the moral fiber of your trust
of course.
With the people you govern, because...
Yes, of course. They compared me, they put us in the same list as Kim Jong-il.
Are you anxious to send a signal that you don't dare write about nepotism in Singapore because the Singaporeans will sue you?
No, the signal we want to send is, if you want to make an allegation, make sure it's true, and be prepared to prove it. We were prepared, when we sued them, to go into court, give evidence, enter the witness box, and be cross-examined under oath. And they can bring their lawyer and demolish us and prove that what they said is true. What more can you ask?
Finally, what's the legacy of your dad? Somebody I admire, as you know, from many conversations he and I've had together.
Well, he made a state where there was none, a country, a nation which will become a nation, which nobody believed could succeed, and he's made a system which can run without him and will endure beyond him.
But he remains as the senior mentor.
He calls himself a mascot. And he doesn't have time to worry about all these.
And what's the most important lesson he taught you?
Never say die. However desperate the situation, if you think hard enough, you'll find a resource and you'll find a way out of it.
Never say die. Never give up.
Yeah.
Never forget the goal.
And don't forget where you came from. It could all be very different.